Welcome back to the deep dive. This time, we're going to be journeying into the world of childhood and nature.
Oh,
And our guide for this trip is Richard Louv's Last Child in the Woods.
oh, great.
We've got excerpts from the book, that you provided, and we're ready to unearth all the cool stuff, all
Right.
the insights that are in there.
It's amazing about Lou's work is that he doesn't just, talk about the growing separation
Yeah.
between kids and nature. He really dives into the implications of that. We're talking environmental, social, psychological, even spiritual impacts.
Wow,
And he backs it all up with research. So,
that's thorough.
yeah.
Yeah, well, he does right from the get-go use these really vivid examples to show how things have changed.
Uh-huh.
Like, summer camps. Instead of being like these havens for exploring the wilderness, they've turned into weight loss camps
Right.
or computer camps.
Yeah.
He even mentions a car commercial where you see kids glued to screens while they're driving through this amazing scenery.
Right.
Just powerful statement on where our priorities lie.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? It speaks to this trend that Louv calls the third frontier.
Ooh.
To understand it, we need to look back at America's historical relationship with nature.
Okay, so break down these frontiers for me.
Okay, so imagine the first frontier.
Okay.
It was all about conquering and utilizing nature, for survival.
Okay.
Pioneers, frontiersmen, settlers,
Right.
their lives depended on, taming the wilderness.
Right, yeah, survival was the name of the game back then.
Exactly.
But how did that change?
Well, think of figures like Teddy Roosevelt. That's where the second frontier comes in.
Okay.
It was about romanticizing and preserving nature.
Okay.
National parks were established.
Yeah.
Conservation efforts began. People started really appreciate the beauty and grandeur of the natural world.
So if the first frontier was about conquering and the second about preserving, where does that leave us today?
Well, Louv argues that we're in this, third frontier, a detachment from nature, and it's fueled by technology, urbanization, and just a general culture of fear.
Right, and it's not just that we're spending less time outdoors, it's almost like we're actively discouraging it.
Right.
Louv describes communities where, tree houses are seen as fire hazards and kids are like shooed away from fishing spots. It's like we're criminalizing natural play.
You hit a key point there. Overdevelopment, strict park rules, environmental regulations, fear of lawsuits,
Yeah.
all contribute to this.
Right.
The message to kids is pretty clear. Organize sports on these, perfectly manicured fields.
Right.
That's the only acceptable way to play outside.
Which is such a shame because, it really stifles that natural inclination kids have for exploration.
Yeah.
Risk-taking, free play. And if I'm remembering correctly, Louv argues that those aren't just frivolous activities.
Yeah.
They're really essential elements of childhood.
I think he's right on, and this connects directly to another crucial aspect that Louv explores, the health benefits of nature. We're finally starting to back up what we've instinctively known all along with scientific research.
Right.
Studies are showing a link between outdoor time and reduced stress, improved concentration, even potential benefits for ADHD.
Louv really drives this point home with that story of Elaine Brooks,
Yeah.
who found solace and healing in this little patch of wild land,
Yeah.
this forgotten space
Mm-hmm.
that most people wouldn't think twice about. And then there's the growing trend of therapists using nature to help children work through trauma.
Yeah.
It really says a lot about nature's restorative power.
Those examples are so powerful. It's not just anecdotal evidence either. There's a growing body of scientific research supporting these claims.
Right.
What I find fascinating is how Louv links nature to intelligence, specifically referencing Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences.
Okay.
Gardner identified 8 distinct intelligences, and what's so interesting is that he considers naturalist intelligence to be one of them.
So people with this intelligence are like nature whisperers.
Yeah.
They can spot patterns in nature. They understand plants and animals. They navigate ecosystems like it's second nature.
Exactly. Think of figures like Darwin, John Muir, Rachel Carson.
Oh, yeah.
Individuals who are just so deeply connected to the natural world and driven by that naturalist intelligence.
Makes you wonder if we're all born with some degree of nature smarts.
Right.
How is this technology-saturated world that we live in
Yeah.
impacting that,
Yeah.
Louv even draws this parallel between kids growing up surrounded by technology and what he calls the boys in the hood. He suggests that both groups, in different ways, are missing out on those really vital sensory experiences.
It's a thought-provoking parallel, isn't it? think about life, a century ago.
Yeah.
Even something as basic as electricity wasn't a given on most farms.
Right.
Daily life involved interacting with the elements, plants, animals.
Yeah.
Your senses were constantly engaged.
Yeah.
Now, while we might enjoy the comforts of modern life, our senses are often, dulled.
Right.
Louv argues that we need those smells, sounds, textures of nature to feel truly alive.
He quotes D.H. Lawrence, who described, awaken to nature's sensory gifts as removing a transparent mucus paper.
Wow.
That prevents us from truly experiencing the world.
Yeah.
It's like we're living life with this filter on.
Uh-huh.
But let's be realistic. For many families today, time constraints and fear, those are huge barriers
Right.
to getting kids outdoors. How does Louv address these very real concerns?
He tackles them head on. He acknowledges that one of the biggest barriers is fear. Fear of strangers, crime, even nature itself.
Yeah.
And you know what? He goes straight for the jugular with the stranger danger myth, using statistics to show just how rare child abductions by strangers actually are.
So it's not just this fear of nature, it's this larger societal fear that's seeping into our parenting.
Yeah.
He uses the example of, the well-meaning public school system, the media parents, effectively, scaring children straight out of the woods and fields.
Yeah. That's right.
A real thing.
And Louv argues that this fear is often misplaced and can create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
The more we fear, the more we restrict,
Yeah.
and the less children actually experience the natural world.
Which then leads to this interesting discussion about, technology's role in our lives.
Uh-huh.
Louv isn't anti-technology, but he is concerned about how it can displace other valuable experiences, particularly our connection with nature. It's not just about screen time. It's a larger conversation about how technology shapes our relationship with the world around us.
Yeah.
He shares this anecdote about a friend who bought a new car with GPS, and she specifically opted out of a backseat television monitor for her daughter.
Right.
The salesperson was completely baffled.
Yeah.
It just shows how ingrained the idea of constant entertainment and distraction has become, even when we're surrounded by natural beauty.
It's like we've forgotten how to simply be present and observe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Louv uses that analogy of computers.
Right.
The issue isn't the computer itself,
Right.
but it's the overdependence that displaces other vital sources of education and experience, including nature.
He encourages us to be more mindful of this displacement and create intentional opportunities for children to engage with nature.
Right, without the constant pull of that technology.
Without that, yeah.
So how do we move past this bogeyman syndrome and create a safer, more nature-rich environment for children? Louv offers a number of suggestions, but this idea for child life preserves is particularly intriguing.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
Well, they're basically protected natural areas,
Okay.
specifically designed for kids to, connect with nature. Spaces where they can roam free, explore, build forts, climb trees, all those activities that are often, restricted in more urbanized settings.
It's like a hybrid between a park and a nature preserve.
Yeah.
But with that specific focus on kids' needs and development. And what I find so compelling is that Louv really envisions these preserves being accessible to all children, regardless of, background or socioeconomic status.
Exactly. He sees them playing this vital role in addressing the nature deficit
Right.
and fostering a new generation of environmental stewards. These spaces would be more than just places to play. They'd be living classrooms.
Oh, wow.
Where kids could learn about ecology, conservation,
Right.
their own connection to the natural world.
It's a beautiful vision.
It really is.
Yeah. And, while these preserves are a compelling idea for the future, Louv also emphasizes that connecting with nature doesn't have to be this grand, elaborate undertaking.
You're absolutely right.
He reminds us that simple, everyday experiences can be just as powerful.
He encourages parents to invite nature into their daily routines, like having your kids study or play in rooms with a view of nature.
Oh, okay.
Or even just having a plant in the room can make a difference.
It's about shifting our mindset, right?
Yeah.
And making nature a priority, even in those small ways.
Exactly.
He also suggests, planting and caring for trees and vegetation at home and appreciating the trees in your community.
There's something so grounding and therapeutic about caring for plants.
Yeah.
And, caring for trees ultimately means caring for people, too.
I love how Louv gives these concrete, actionable tips that anyone can implement,
Right.
like going on a moth walk with your kids.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
Imagine, like, mixing up this concoction of squishy fruit, stale beer, and sweetener, slapping some on trees at sunset, and
Right.
coming back when it's dark to see what you've attracted.
Moths, ants, earwigs, all sorts of interesting insects are drawn to that brew.
It sounds like a fun, slightly messy adventure.
It is.
What a kid wouldn't love that?
Exactly.
And he has other great ideas too. You can get kids involved in tracking bird migrations,
Right.
looking for hibernating insects, even catching tadpoles,
Right.
watching them transform into frogs, and then releasing them back into the wild.
It's amazing.
Those are the kinds of experiences that really spark curiosity and wonder.
Absolutely.
Oh, and who can forget building a backyard weather station?
That's a classic.
What kid wouldn't be fascinated by tracking the weather?
For sure.
I know I was.
Me too.
And speaking of simple ways to connect with nature, Louv also encourages families to embrace the green hour.
The green hour. Tell me more about that.
It's the National Wildlife Federation's recommendation that parents give their kids a daily green hour
Okay.
for unstructured play and interaction with the natural world.
I like it.
Even just 15 minutes is a great starting point.
Right.
It's about stepping back and letting kids explore independently, which helps them develop new skills and build confidence.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and he also suggests, like, inventing your own nature games.
Oh.
Like finding 10 critters on a hike. Mammals, birds, insects, even footprints or mole holes count.
I love that.
It turns a simple hike into this scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
And speaking of documentation, encouraging kids to keep a nature journal is another fantastic idea.
They can record their discoveries in words, drawings, photographs, whatever captures their imagination.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to encourage observation and reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're on the topic of hands-on activities, what about planting a garden?
Plant in a garden, whether it's flowers or vegetables,
Yeah,
is a fantastic way for kids to connect with nature.
right.
They learn about the cycle of life, the patience and care required for something to grow,
Yeah.
and the satisfaction of nurturing something from seed to harvest.
It's hands-on learning at its best.
It really is.
Yeah, and Louv also talks about the importance of finding these places of initiation.
Yeah.
What exactly are those, and how can we help kids discover them?
Places of initiation are those special places in nature where children can connect deeply. The places where they feel a sense of wonder and belonging. It might be a nearby park, a wooded area, a creek, a favorite tree. The key is to let children lead the way and discover their own special places.
What's fascinating is that Louv suggests these places don't have to be like pristine wilderness areas.
Right.
He talks about the value of the unofficial countryside,
Mhm.
those undeveloped, often overlooked areas that are teeming with life.
You mean like a vacant lot, a ditch, a patch of weeds?
Exactly. Those forgotten spaces.
Yeah,
Could be incredible learning environments for children.
it's true.
But it's not just about letting kids loose in nature, right?
Right.
Louv stresses the importance of parents modeling a love of nature for their children.
You're absolutely right. Kids are incredibly perceptive.
Mm-hmm.
They pick up on our attitudes and behaviors. If we want them to value nature, we need to demonstrate that we do too.
It's not about being a nature expert ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about being a guide, a companion, a fellow explorer.
Right.
Share your passion for the natural world. Take them on hikes, point out interest in plants and animals,
Uh-huh.
and simply spend time together in nature.
Louv encourages parents to be open to learning alongside their children
Yeah.
and let go of the need to have all the answers.
Right.
It's more about fostering curiosity and a sense of wonder together.
It reminds me of his suggestion to replace "be careful"
Oh, yeah.
with "pay attention." What a simple yet profound shift in language.
Yeah, I love that.
It encourages kids to be more aware of their surroundings
Yeah.
and develop a healthy respect for nature without instilling fear.
Exactly. And, it's not just about recreation.
Right.
It's about education.
Okay.
Louv is a strong advocate for what he calls environment-based learning, where nature becomes the classroom.
He mentioned some really inspiring examples like
Yeah.
the Swallowtail School, which is completely immersed in nature,
Right.
and those amazing schools with trout in the classroom programs,
Oh, wow.
where kids raise fish and release them into the wild.
Those programs sound incredible. It's about creating a connection that can't be replicated in a traditional classroom setting.
And he doesn't stop there.
Right.
He also calls for a revival of natural history in higher education.
Uh-huh.
He's concerned that the emphasis on technology and specialization has led to a decline in the study of natural history,
Yeah.
which is crucial for understanding our relationship with the natural world.
Absolutely. We need more scientists, researchers, and educators who are deeply knowledgeable about the natural world
Yeah.
and can inspire future generations to care for it.
But what about the argument that emphasizing nature somehow diminishes the importance of faith
Right.
or spirituality?
Hmm.
I know Louv touches on this role of faith in environmentalism, which isn't a connection we hear about very often.
It's a really intriguing aspect of his argument.
Right.
He suggests that faith-based organizations can play a vital role in reconnecting people with nature and inspiring environmental stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
He points out that many religious texts and traditions emphasize caring for creation.
He even mentions Paul Gorman, an evangelical Christian,
Right.
who argues that experience in nature can deepen our understanding of God and our place in the world.
And Gorman reminds us that the Bible itself uses the language of nature to convey spiritual truths.
Yeah.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He
Mm.
maketh me to lie down in green pastures.
Yeah.
He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. It's beautiful, really.
It's a reminder that our connection to nature is deeply intertwined with our spiritual lives, regardless of our specific beliefs.
Absolutely.
But shifting gears a bit, what happens if we continue down this path of disconnection from nature?
Right.
What are the long-term implications of what Louv calls nature deficit disorder?
Louv paints a pretty concerning picture of what could happen if we don't, like course correct.
Okay.
He argues that this disconnect could lead to a decline in physical and mental health,
Right.
a diminished capacity for creativity and problem solving, and a weakened sense of wonder and connection to the world around us.
And he suggests that it could even contribute to a decline in environmental stewardship as future generations just, lose their connection to nature
Yep.
and become less invested in protecting it. That's a sobering thought.
It is, but Louv doesn't leave us hanging on a note of despair.
Okay.
He believes we have the power to reverse this trend and create a more nature-rich future for ourselves and our children.
He proposes this multifaceted approach
Yeah.
involving changes in our individual lives, families, communities, educational systems, and public policies.
It's not about romanticizing the past.
Right.
It's about creating a new future that integrates the best of both worlds.
Okay.
Technology and nature, urban and rural, individual and community.
Louv uses a personal story to illustrate this point. He talks about how his family lost their home in the devastating California wildfires of 2003.
Oh, wow.
It's a powerful metaphor for the fragility of our connection to nature.
It is.
He describes the shock and loss they felt as their world literally went up in flames.
Yeah.
But amidst the devastation, he also highlights the resilience of nature and the power of hope and renewal.
Right.
He ends the book with this poignant scene of reading the novel Lionhound to his sons, a story that evokes the wildness and wonder of nature, even amidst the ashes of loss.
It's a beautiful reminder that our connection to nature can be a source of strength and solace,
Right.
even in the face of adversity.
And ultimately, he urges us to rediscover the joy of nature
Yeah.
and pass that legacy on to future generations. It's a powerful message of hope and a call to action.
Absolutely. We've focused a lot on children, but what about the adults?
Right.
Do we not also benefit from connecting with nature?
That's a fantastic point. And Louv doesn't neglect the adults in this conversation.
Right.
He emphasizes that the benefits of nature extend to all of us.
Spending time in nature can reduce stress, improve mood, boost creativity, and even enhance our spiritual lives.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. It might be a walk in the park, gardening, bird watching, or simply sitting outside and listening to the sounds of nature.
He reminds us that we all have this innate connection to nature,
Yeah.
even if we've lost touch with it along the way.
And reconnecting with nature can be a profoundly restorative and enriching experience.
It can.
He tells this great story about his friend, Tom Rubble,
Okay.
the founder of the Nature Company.
Oh, right.
Rubble was a pioneer in nature-oriented retailing, and he observed that people had this deep longing for nature,
Yeah.
even if it was in this synthetic form.
So he tapped into that desire by offering faux flora and fauna.
Exactly.
Interesting.
But his ultimate goal was to encourage people to experience the real thing.
Right, right.
It just highlights how profound this human need for connection with nature is,
Uh-huh.
even in our technology-driven world.
It reminds us that we don't have to choose between nature and modern life.
Right.
We can find creative ways to integrate nature into our everyday routines
Mm.
and reap the benefits for our well-being.
Well, we've talked a lot about individual actions.
Right.
What about broader societal changes?
Yeah.
How do we create a more nature-rich environment for everyone?
Louv suggests a number of systemic changes.
Yeah.
For example, we need a greater emphasis on environmental education in schools,
Okay.
more green spaces in urban areas,
Yeah.
and policies that promote sustainable development.
He also encourages greater collaboration between different sectors,
Mhm.
educators, conservationists, urban planners, policymakers, and faith-based organizations
Right.
to address the nature deficit disorder.
It's not a problem with a single solution.
Right.
It requires a unified response from various stakeholders.
He even envisions a revitalized back to the land movement,
Right.
not in the traditional sense of abandoned cities, but rather by creating rural areas that are designed in harmony with nature
Right.
and offer a more balanced way of life.
These communities would embrace technology and ethics,
Okay.
emphasize sustainable agriculture, renewable energy, and foster a strong sense of community.
He sees this as a potential solution to that increasing urbanization and sprawl
Yeah.
that's contributed to the nature deficit.
Right.
And he points to examples of sustainable communities in Europe,
Huh?
like the eco-village in Drachten, Netherlands,
Okay.
where kids can roam freely in nature
Yeah.
as models for this type of development.
That's great.
It's an inspiring vision for a future where we can live in harmony with nature in both urban and rural settings.
Absolutely.
Speaking of inspiring visions, Louv's discussion about zoo schools is particularly interesting.
What exactly are zoo schools? I don't think I'm familiar with that concept.
He's talking about how zoos, museums, and botanical gardens can play a crucial role in connecting children with nature.
Oh.
These institutions have so much knowledge and resources that can be used to create immersive learning experiences for kids.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you give me an example of how this would work?
He talks about the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum
Okay.
and their work to repair pollination corridors.
Mm-hmm.
He envisions zoos and museums selling packets of indigenous seeds of pollinating plants
Okay.
so that every garden can become a haven for wildlife.
It's a great example of how we can create pockets of nature even in the most urbanized environments.
Yeah, and he emphasizes the importance of local knowledge.
Right.
Louv suggests that schools should focus on teaching children about their own region's unique ecosystems and indigenous species.
This kind of place-based education fosters a deeper connection to the local environment and instills a sense of responsibility for its care.
Yeah. But let's be realistic for a moment.
Okay.
There are legitimate legal and liability concerns
Yeah.
that often prevent children from experiencing nature freely.
Right.
How does Louv address those concerns?
You're right. Those concerns are very real. He discusses the issue of recreational use statutes,
Okay.
which are designed to protect landowners from liability when they allow the public to use their property for recreation. Unfortunately, these statutes are often interpreted in ways that discourage landowners from letting children play unsupervised on their property
Okay.
for fear of lawsuits.
So it's this fear of litigation that's further limiting children's access to nature.
Exactly. And Louv suggests these statutes need to be clarified and revised to encourage more opportunities for children to experience nature safely and freely.
Yeah.
We need to shift away from a culture of fear and litigation and move towards a culture of trust and shared responsibility for children's well-being.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
For sure.
But I agree with Louv that it's a conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into Last Child in the Woods.
We have.
It's an incredibly insightful and thought-provoking book,
It is.
packed with information and inspiration.
A lot to think about.
What are your final thoughts on Louv's message and its relevance today,
Yeah.
over a decade after it was first published?
I think Louv's message is, if anything, more relevant today than it was back then.
Yeah.
You know, the trends he describes, the increase in separation between kids and nature, the rise of technology, the
Yeah.
culture of fear, it's all intensified in recent years.
It feels like it, yeah.
But what strikes me is that he doesn't just present a problem.
Right.
He offers solutions.
Right.
And not just vague ideas, but concrete, actionable steps.
Yeah, he really lays out this roadmap for change.
He does.
You know, he talks about building a movement,
Mm-hmm.
a collective effort to reconnect children with nature.
Yeah.
And he doesn't just, like, throw that out there. He outlines a 100-point plan,
Wow.
addressing everything from individual actions to community initiatives
Right.
to policy reforms.
That's impressive.
It's a call to action for everyone: parents, educators, conservationists, policymakers, business leaders, faith-based organizations.
Anyone who cares about the future, really.
Yeah, anyone who cares about the future. And he really emphasizes that need for collaboration.
Yeah.
Breaking down those silos that often exist between these different groups.
We ought to work together.
Yeah, he challenges us to think creatively and work together to create that more nature-rich world.
I like that.
He even provides these tailored suggestions for specific groups.
Uh-huh.
For example, he encourages nature centers and wildlife sanctuaries to reevaluate their programs.
Mm-hmm.
Can they offer more unstructured play for young children?
Right.
Can they create more opportunities for teenagers to volunteer?
That's a good point.
You know?
He also pushes conservation organizations to think about their long-term impact.
Okay.
Supporting programs that get kids outdoors isn't just about immediate conservation efforts.
Right.
It's about cultivating a future generation of environmental stewards.
And he makes this really interesting point about how we measure our success.
Okay.
He stresses the importance of tracking children's engagement in nature
Uh-huh.
and including this information in reports about endangered or threatened species.
Yeah.
It's about explicitly making that connection between the well-being of children
Yeah.
and the health of the planet. What stands out to you about those suggestions?
I think what's so effective about Louv's approach is that he recognizes the need for solutions that are tailored to specific communities and ecosystems.
Yeah.
He calls for regional Leave No Child Inside campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that the challenges and opportunities will vary depending on the location.
Yeah.
And he envisions botanical gardens, zoos, and museums as hubs for these campaigns,
Okay.
as well as spaces for adult and youth discussion groups on these topics.
Oh, wow.
He even suggests that bookstores could host similar meetings throughout the year.
That would be great.
It's about building a network of support and inspiration for those working to bring nature back into children's lives.
It's about turning this concern into a tangible movement with real-world impact.
Exactly.
Louv's message, at its core, is one of hope and empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
He truly believes we have the power to change course and create a future where children experience the joy and wonder of nature
Right.
and develop that profound connection to the world around them.
It's a beautiful vision.
It really is.
And this isn't just about the kids, right?
Yeah.
As we've discussed, reconnecting with nature can be a deeply enriching experience for adults, too.
Right. It reduces stress, improves our health,
Yeah.
and deepens our understanding
Absolutely.
of ourselves and our place in the universe.
Well said.
It's a journey worth taking.
It is.
We've reached the end of our deep dive into Last Child in the Woods.
That went by fast.
I know, right? We explored a lot of information.
We did.
And hopefully sparked some new ideas for you.
Hopefully.
Remember, this deep dive is just the beginning.
It is.
What resonated most with you from Louv's work?
Yeah.
How can you integrate these ideas into your own life or encourage the children around you to connect with nature?
These are questions worth reflecting on.
They are. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.